This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, everybody? Friday afternoon. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson and Michael Remis with you. A very big show coming up. Lots of Jets talk. Lots of Jets and Maple Leafs talk coming off last night's game. Looking ahead to tomorrow's rematch. And man, do we have a couple great guests to finish off the week to talk about those Winnipeg Jets and Toronto Maple Leafs. Voice of the Jets, our good friend Dennis Beyak, makes his first appearance on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily coming up in about 10 minutes. And a little later on, we will have the co-host of Sportsnet's Hockey Central, Justin Bourne, joining us to talk about last night's game and more from the National Hockey League, of course. As always, Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily brought to you by our good friends and loyal sponsors, Not AutoCorp, Boston Pizza, Winnipeg, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend Country Club, Coolbet Canada, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. Oh, we've got a lot to get to, so let's get right to it and welcome in Michael Remis from the Winnipeg Sports Talk Command Center. Remo, what's good? How are you, my friend?
So I'm trying to keep track of all the stuff coming out of Jets. Jets media today, whatever they're doing. So lots going on. Hellebuyck has some good quotes, got some good videos. We are excited for that.
We certainly are. And as disappointing as the game was last night, I have to say, as someone that's been following and covering this team for a long time, the post-game was memorable. And I would love to hear, and we're going to hear some quotes from Coach Paul Maurice from last night's game. I listened to it, and then I went back and listened to it again, and I realized that the body of work is elite over the course of the last 8 years. But that, to me, I think that might have been a top 10 Paul Maurice press conference in Winnipeg, Remis. I mean, there were, I mean, we're going to get to it in a minute. He was angry, I think, about a number of things. And, in some ways didn't want to go to certain places, but in others did. And, as always with Coach Paul Maurice, win or lose, sometimes you get some real gold in front of the microphone, and we certainly had that last night. Hellebuyck, hey, he didn't have a great game, and it's very interesting. Mike McIntyre was just tweeting this out, and we're going to hear the coach's comments from last night. We didn't hear Hellebuyck after the game, but he's apparently spoken in just the last sort of few minutes. And I'll just read these tweets from Mike McIntyre. Goalie Connor Hellebuyck on getting the hook last night after giving up 3 goals on 6 shots in 11:59. It's a 3-2 game. I don't think I should have been pulled. That's as far as I'll go on that.
Let me just pop in here. I was muted, so I got to tell my whole joke again from before. I'm so angry right now. I'm about to drop a couple F-bombs. All I was saying was that it seemed like David Rittich put on a Jets jersey and walked across the hall and, stepped in net for the Jets last night.
And I went, whoa, how dare you besmirch our Vezina Trophy winning goaltender like that, Michael Remis.
Yeah, that was the line. And then I was just saying how it seemed like, the Jets got back from, they got back from the road trip and they lost. And then this time that was the excuse. And then this time was, they had 4 days off. And then they came out flat. But again, it may have been just the goaltending the rest of the game.
I'll say this.
It wasn't bad.
I'll say this. It was Wheeler's final answer who sort of said, we had 4 days off. Listen, it's not a good look. I will admit that right off the bat. But upon further review, despite the fact that when I first heard it, I'm like, oh, man, really? Listen, we all know what happened last night. The Jets got off to a rough start, and Connor Hellebuyck was not Connor Hellebuyck. And, that was in a lot of ways sort of the game. And then they were chasing it for the rest of the way, even though they did get back to 2-2. So I think he was covering up for their MVP. So I'm going to give, that's get a pass. But needless to say, I was disappointed in the first period, Remis. And I said this yesterday. I thought that with a couple days of good practice, with a little bit of rest, and maybe most importantly, the return of Blake Wheeler to the lineup, I really thought the Jets would be all over Toronto. But again, when the first couple shots go in the net, that does sort of change the game, and it did last night. So It was a tough loss. I really liked the way the Jets battled back, though, in the game. I mean, when you look at it, I thought the Jets, played. They were right there with Toronto last night. I mean, again, I think Connor Hellebuyck had a rough first period. That was a big part of it. Although I will say this, credit to Laurent Brossoit. He certainly came in and, did a pretty darn good job. The tough goal, he probably would have liked to have maybe been positioned a little bit better for that Mitch Marner shot. But the Marner shot, the puck was bouncing. He got it in sort of a strange way, and it went right up into that top corner. Certainly, Brossoit was not the reason why the Jets lost the game last night. That being said, come Saturday, I think we will expect a much better first period from the Winnipeg Jets, and I think that would go a long way. Not to mention their goaltender mixing in a few saves early on in the hockey game.
I would hope so, Huss. I think some people in chat are saying Hellebuyck earned the benefit of the doubt. Maurice said he was trying to get some momentum. We can play the clip after. But personally, sometimes, you have it, sometimes you don't. It was clear after 3 goals on 6 shots. Connor Hellebuyck didn't have it last night. And it doesn't change what I think about him. It doesn't take away his Vezina trophy. I mean, the Matthews one, maybe you could argue, this is Austin Matthews. He's the leading scorer. He can score from anywhere. But those are saves that Hellebuyck usually makes. And you know what? I agree with the poll. Sometimes you gotta do it.
Well, you know what? As I said, Connor Hellebuyck not agreeing with it. He said it's a 3-2 game. I don't think I should have been pulled. That's as far as I'll go on that. Then also said, he said, this is Mike McIntyre's tweets, more from a fired-up Connor Hellebuyck bristling at the early yank from Coach Paul Maurice last night. I'm not going to lie and say I had A-plus material, but I thought the game I had was good enough to win. And then Mike adds, I don't take this at all as kind of sign Connor Hellebuyck slamming Paul Maurice for pulling him. It's just who Hellebuyck is. It's how his mind is wired and what makes him such a fierce competitor.
Got nothing on Lowry. The ref's already.
And you know what, Reem? In a lot of ways, this is exactly who Connor Hellebuyck is. And we've already sort of joked that even on games where he hasn't been good, he'll say things like, I like my game. I'm right there. And you know what? Whatever works. Guys are not going to be perfect every single game of the regular season. It was a disappointing start. I have no doubt he'll be better tomorrow. I would imagine he'll be the Winnipeg Jets starting goaltender. And to the point of what Hellebuyck was saying, then this went back to the coach. And Maurice said he loves the attitude of Connor Hellebuyck, clearly angered about getting pulled. And in his mind, he's going to stop the next 75 shots he faces. And listen, the resiliency and the ability to bounce back from difficult outings has been a calling card of Connor Hellebuyck over the last little while, and a big reason why the Jets are where they are, and they have enjoyed the success that they've had while he has been the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Hellebuyck, he's never come out and said, I had a bad game. He does, we joke that he lived in some kind of alternate reality. Look, you like to have that confidence. And, he's confident in his own game. He always, probably said he liked his game, just needed to work on a couple details, and that's what he says. So, again, he wasn't great yesterday, and I think he would admit that, said he didn't have his A game. I mean, good enough to win. I'm not so sure, based on 3 goals on 6 shots. But look, the Jets were down. Give them credit. They came back and tied the game. They definitely, 2-0, you thought, okay, maybe this isn't going so well, but they were definitely in it. But, I mean, in the end, Toronto's had some good talent, and they were able to come out on top.
Hey, shout out to GoPro Trucker Manitoba, who just dropped into the super chat. GoPro Trucker says, it's Friday. How about some positivity? Let's forget about the Leafs. It's time to focus on the Oilers in the first round. Yeah. Well, I will say this. You want some positivity? I can't wait for the game tomorrow night. And I'll tell you what, the Jets can win that game tomorrow night in regulation. There's still enough track left. Of course, that final game of the regular season between these two clubs. I mean, that was the Leafs' first win in 6 games. It's not like they're on a big run right now. So I think this is a 3-way race right now. 3-way race. Last night's game certainly does not mean that the Winnipeg Jets are no longer in the conversation for first place. However, GoPro Trucker, and thanks again for the super chat, I will say the most likely outcome is a first-round matchup against the Edmonton Oilers, and I think we can all get into that. We'll be talking a lot about the Oilers next week when the Jets and Edmonton play 2 more times, but the focus for today is going to be the rematch tomorrow night. Now, Remo, one of the other unfortunate things that happened in last night's game, and another part of the reason why I think Paul Maurice was so choked after the game, was a high hit on Adam Lowry, which knocked him out of the game. We're hearing reports that he was not on the ice today. We'll wait for an update on Adam Lowry. But let's hear this clip. This is Maurice from the post-game last night talking about the Lowry hit.
Their decision on that hit, so what I got to say doesn't mean anything.
Sorry, Paul, not to belabor it, but just can you expand on that a bit? Like, did they miss what happened, or did they see it but determine that they didn't think it was a foul?
I wouldn't get an explanation for that. I didn't get any explanation.
So there you go. Nothing to the coach on that. No penalty on it. And I saw Jeff in the chat mentioning, the Thornton hit as well on Matthew Perreault, which sent him to the dressing room. He got like a $3,000 fine today. So the old slap on the wrist. The guy's made like over 100 million all time, I think, in the National Hockey League. Something tells me 3K is not really going to change it. Jet Oil Tom, hey, super chat. Hey, Reem, don't worry, you're the man.
You don't need to do a super chat because of that, but it is appreciated.
People are supporting you. People are definitely supporting you. Let's get to, before we bring Dennis Beyak in, though, let's get to a few of these other Maurice clips because there was some serious gold from the coach last night. Second clip we want to play was the start last night and what happened early in the first period that sort of got them behind the eight ball.
I don't know, it's 2-2. It's they didn't run all over us. They got 2 pucks to the net that we didn't like. We weren't better than they were, but I don't know how much better they were than us. It was too early enough in that game.
This was vintage Maurice in that everyone knew what happened. I mean, Connor and listen, he did sort of mention that he didn't like the first couple goals and he was trying to change momentum a little later on. But, as tough as the start was, it was 2-2 a little bit later on, and the coach sort of focused in on that. But listen, before we get to Dennis, this was the line, and this, I have to say, and this was maybe the money line of the entire presser, and why I think this may very well have been a top 10 Maurice presser with the Winnipeg Jets. Jason Bell asked him, going back to the Lowry hit, which Maurice was obviously quite angry about. The Jets were chasing the game. They're trying to win. There wasn't any quote-unquote response. There was no one running around doing it. And Jay Bell asked about this and got an incredible line from Maurice coming back.
You wonder if some people will wonder, should there be a response when there's a perceived high hit? As a coach, do you like the fact that maybe in a tight hockey game there wasn't, or is it how do you kind of balance the approach there with your hockey team?
If you circle a guy's name on the board, you get sued.
What a line by the coach last night. That's hey, you know what? And he's right. I mean, that is something that used to happen that doesn't as much anymore. And I think, you sort of lean on players to understand the game, understand the situation, and go and kind of pick their spots at the right time. But as Maurice very correctly said, I mean, you can't go and put bounties on anyone going forward. And, would I think Maurice like maybe some sort of pushback at some point? Yes. I mean, I think that's the sort of the way he is. But I got to tell you, if you circle a guy's name on the board, you get sued. Could very well be a soundbite here on the program going forward. It was some good stuff last night from the guys afterwards. The Wheeler-Friesen rivalry continues to simmer. We'll have maybe that clip a little later on. Has a few other things. But let's talk about the games. Before we do it, Dennis Beyak's going to join us in just a couple seconds. Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily is always brought to you by Knott Autocorp. Why not get into the vehicle of your dreams at a great price with the help of the Knott team? Go see them, Waverly and McGillivray. Incredible selection of vehicles, including the most Teslas here in Manitoba. And you can also consign your vehicle if you'd like. Find out more at knott.ca or pop down and see them. Tell them the Winnipeg Sports Talk guys sent you to Knott at Waverly and McGillivray. And, of course, Boston Pizza, another game night tomorrow. Great time to get that game night meal deal with the spicy pierogi pizza, the Meteor, the 24-case of wings, or call your shot with the pizza pairs. And Molson Canadian, you can win instant Boston Pizza gift certs, a custom-made outdoor rink for your backyard next winter, or even a VIP NHL experience. That right now available at all local Boston Pizzas for takeout, delivery, or eat in. All right. Been looking forward to this. Many of you have been asking for this individual to join us, and it is long overdue. Man, it's great to have Dennis Beyak on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. What's going on, Dennis? How are you?
I'm good, Huss. How are you?
Oh man, I'm great. You know, it was an interesting game last night. Obviously, we would have liked to see the Jets a little closer to the Leafs in the standings. But again, if Connor Hellebuyck was going to have a game like that, better it happen now than in a few weeks in the playoffs right now. And I'm very interested to see the rematch tomorrow night between how the Winnipeg Jets and particularly their starting goaltender bounce back, considering what we just heard from the always confident Connor Hellebuyck. What did you think of the game last night, Dennis?
Well, not sure who had a tougher night, Connor Hellebuyck or the referees. But certainly it wasn't the start that Connor Hellebuyck wanted. I know he felt that maybe he shouldn't have been yanked from the game, but I think when one goes in short side, the next one goes through you, and then there's one in front that's a bit of a tip. I'm not sure if the coach has much option, but to make a goaltending change for one of two reasons. Either you don't think your netminder, your starting netminder is on his game that night, or as you guys talked about, trying to switch momentum a little bit. Maybe a little bit of both, but I don't think the coach thought the first three that got by Connor Hellebuyck were goals that would normally beat Connor Hellebuyck.
Well, and to be honest, I think the coach is exactly right on that. But I have to say, I'm not surprised at all to hear Connor Hellebuyck say that it's a 3-2 game. I don't think I should have been pulled, and as far as I go on that. If there's one thing we learned from Connor Hellebuyck over the years, Dennis, is that this guy's a very special goaltender and a special individual, a unique, even amongst goalies. And no matter what happens, he has a level of confidence and belief in himself that, frankly, not many National Hockey Leaguers or not many athletes have, period.
Yeah, I don't know if you get to the pro level without having some of that. Maybe a goaltender, a quarterback, a pitcher. Maybe those athletes have to have a little more of it than some other players. But certainly Connor Hellebuyck does not lack confidence. I was wondering whether or not he was going to leave the net for maybe 5-10 minutes and then maybe come back in. But, by that time, Laurent Brossoit had got settled in and made a couple of real good saves. And I think he just, whether that was in his thought process at all, he just elected to leave it with Laurent Brossoit and go the distance. But, they came back, made it a 1-goal game. And even when they were down 4-2, came back, made it a 1-goal game, had some chances in the third period and couldn't find that tying goal. And then Toronto gets the empty netter. But, I agree. I think tomorrow night's going to be another real good hockey game. We're in for some real good hockey here. We got the Toronto game tomorrow night. Then we got the Edmonton games next week and a battle for top spot in the North. The only thing missing is the fact that Edmonton and Toronto don't play anymore. But, certainly it's going to be a great couple of days of hockey here.
Well, you know what, Dennis? It is a great three-way race for first place. And I'm not sure I expected that to be the case, but I'll tell you what, going into this season, I would have put some money down that we would have had an incredible race for that final playoff spot. And to me, the most incredible thing that's happened this season that I wasn't expecting was the complete bottoming out of the Calgary Flames to the point that the Habs really don't need to win that many games to make sure that they're the fourth and final playoff team in the North.
Situation now with every win, every point they pick up, it really puts the Calgary Flames behind the 8 ball because they're simply going to run out of games. And you hope that what happened in Calgary
Didn't like the first two.
Something that carries on and that they can get that game tonight. We don't have any more delays in the Western Conference, or in the North Division here and that. But that has been a surprise. There's no doubt. I was with you. I thought there was really going to be a battle for top in the North, and I thought there was going to be a real tight battle for that final playoff spot. But, Vancouver didn't get off to the start that they were looking for. They had a tough schedule at the start. Ottawa didn't get off to the start that they wanted, and now the Ottawa Senators are a very tough team to play against. And then the Calgary Flames, we saw the coaching change, and then who knows whether the changes are going to happen in Calgary during the offseason. But, that race just simply isn't there. Montreal is simply going to run the Calgary Flames out of games. And if Ottawa had another 10, 15 games, they might get themselves right back into it too. But that's probably not going to happen. So Montreal, if that game goes tonight and Montreal wins, that's pretty much going to give them some breathing room too.
Yeah, and then as you mentioned, that was a tough loss for Vancouver last night, coming off those 2 big wins against Toronto to begin the first 4 straight against Ottawa with a loss last night. But as we've seen, and ask the Calgary Flames about the Ottawa Senators this year. I mean, if they reverse their record against Ottawa, they're right there in the mix for a playoff spot as opposed to where they are right now. Dennis, I mean, just talking about the North Division, it's been such a weird year for, I mean, not just in hockey, just in all of our lives. How's this year been for you, and how different has it been? What's it been like calling the games, not necessarily in the building right now? How have you been handling everything?
Well, you miss not being at the games. I mean, that's kind of what we all sign up for, is to watch games live and call games live. But unfortunately, and the right choice was made, that we didn't want to travel a whole bunch of people, me included. And we had a long discussion at the World Junior Championship with TSN people in Edmonton. And, they asked, what's your preference? And I just kind of felt the way things were that, and you know what, once we were off the charter for this year, that kind of started the ball rolling from that standpoint. And even then you can kind of handle the airlines because you can kind of mask yourself up and make sure you're as careful as you possibly can be. Not saying that it still won't happen. You can get to the hotel as I did in Edmonton for the World Junior and immediately wiped all the taps down, wiped all the doorknobs down, wiped the TV remote down, and everything that you were going to touch on a regular basis. So you can control that. It's getting to and from the hotel and to and from the rink that eventually was going to become an issue. And we made the decision at that time that until things got a lot better, and unfortunately they haven't, we were not going to travel a whole bunch of people. So the only difference for me is, instead of looking at the ice surface to call a game live, on the road games, I turn around and I'm calling games off a monitor. So, and there's been some challenges. And I'll rant a little bit here, for a season that was supposed to be about games on television, to allow some of the jerseys that we have seen is unfair. It's unfair to the broadcasters. It's unfair to the fans who are watching the game. The Ottawa Senators' third jersey, that red jersey, you cannot pick up a number without really, really concentrating. But we had, unfortunately, touch wood, we've only had those jerseys once. We may get them again for the last Ottawa game. We'll see, but they are almost impossible. I said after the game, I have never, ever worked so hard at broadcasting a hockey game as I did that one. And the Toronto reverse retro jerseys aren't great. Vancouver's jerseys aren't great. The Edmonton Oilers' third jersey that they've had for a few years now is not great. Hard enough to call when you're in the building. Very difficult to call off monitor. And apologize to all the people that have caught misidentification, but it's going to happen again. Sorry.
Yeah, well, and those jerseys, not only are they hard to make out, they are also ugly as hell too. So I don't really know if they're doing much. Dennis Beyak is with us, voice of the Jets on TSN. Dennis, just when it comes to calling the games, even when you're in the home building, there's no fans. And I'm interested in your perspective, because, I mean, a big part of watching the game and the feeling that viewers get listening to you call a game, as well as Paul, I mean, you sort of feel that energy and the emotion of the building, and it goes hand in hand with the call. How has the lack of fans affected you or changed the call of the game, as well as, what we might be seeing at home? Because, you put in some of the sounds and it does sound normal, but it's obvious that there's something missing, which the massive reactions that obviously fans at Bell MTS Center often provide.
Yeah, as the game gets going and as the intensity of the game picks up, if you get a key goal, 3-3 tie, and somebody scores with a couple minutes left, as soon as you say scores, you may, re-identify who got the goal, but then you lay it and you let the crowd take it and let them carry it for 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds, and then you get back into your replay of the goal and carry on as normal. But we don't have that. The noise that you hear, we are hearing in our ears, and that helps. It gives you a little bit of crowd noise, especially on the home games. If you didn't have anything in the building, I'm sure, as loud as I am and some other broadcasters are, I'm sure the players could hear us on the ice. And so they have that crowd noise in the building, and that kind of drowns some of that out. But you do miss that excitement, because that's what gets you pumped up. That's what gives you, on the nights where things aren't going well from a broadcast standpoint, those are the things that kind of and keep on going. So there's no doubt the players miss the fans. We miss the fans. I've had the ability, I guess, to call some games with not many people in the building. At World Championships, you'll get Norway playing Denmark in a tournament in Germany, and you'll have basically friends and family and the fans that have traveled from those countries there, so you won't have a big crowd. So I've done some games before, but not in the National Hockey League, and that's been a challenge, I think, maybe more for players than anybody else. But again, the most used term from a few years back, it is what it is, and we'll get through it, and hopefully next year we're all back to normal.
Dennis Beyak with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Dennis, I wanted to take advantage of, having this format and being able to go a little longer, to go a little bit back with you, because I think a lot of fans are familiar with you as being the voice of the Winnipeg Jets for the last 10 years, but your journey to this point is very different than I think a lot of people in the business. Maybe let's just back up. I mean, you were not always a broadcaster. I mean, you were on the other side of things, kind of similar to me, working on the hockey side of things in the Western League. Let's talk a little bit about your time before you became a broadcaster, and then how you made that transition.
Hassan, I think, as you mentioned, working on the other side, I think we get a better handle of things aren't always as easy as they would seem. And if there's one thing that I've learned over the years, that's been it, by being on that other side. And I'll give you the Coles Notes version here, because we don't have enough time. We could go till Monday. We could take the entire weekend here. I gave you the long version. But, I started in broadcasting in Flin Flon. Got a call to move to Saskatoon, which I did. Patty Gannell, who was running Flin Flon when I was there, bought the Victoria Cougars, called me and said, would you come to Victoria? I moved to Victoria. 2 years later, he sold the team. I was going back through Saskatoon. They offered me my old job back at CFQC Radio and Television. I took it. And then there was a change with the Saskatoon Blades. They approached me to join the Blades organization in whatever capacity was needed. The official title at that time was assistant GM, but it was marketing, it was scouting, it was a little bit of everything. Statistics. We had the Memorial Cup in '89, or I'll go backtrack a little bit. We opened up the new building in February of '89. Telecable wanted to broadcast the game. Darryl Lubanicki, our general manager, said, you can broadcast it, but Dennis has to do the play-by-play. So I went back and I broadcast that first game between the Saskatoon Blades and the Brandon Wheat Kings, that the Blades did end up winning. And then after that, the decision was made, can we get you back in the broadcasting booth and still keep you working with the hockey club and doing all the things that I was doing for the Saskatoon Blades? And I got back into broadcasting there. We had the Memorial Cup in '89, which was a huge success thanks to a whole lot of volunteers and a whole lot of people who put so many hours into it. Seattle got the Memorial Cup. They approached me, would you come to Seattle? Went there as assistant GM and did the play-by-play for them for a couple of years. Peter Ranholt left. They said, do you want to be the general manager? I said, yes. I became the general manager of the Seattle Thunderbirds for a couple of years. And that's been in the news here the last little bit here because of Patrick Marleau, who just passed Gordie Howe. In 1994, we drafted Patrick Marleau in the first round of the Bantam draft to the Seattle Thunderbirds. I never saw him play with Seattle. I left, went to Tri-Cities for a year. I was approached by the Americans to come there. We had a real good year. I got fired. We'll save that one for a longer day for you. And ended up in Edmonton visiting some friends, and they said the Oilers are looking for a play-by-play guy. And so I started the ball rolling there and got in touch with some people. And next thing you know, I was the television voice of the Edmonton Oilers, did that for a couple of years. CFRN lost the rights. Wasn't sure what I was doing. I was on my way to cover an Eskimo practice and got a call from Molestar in Toronto, who Molestar at that time owned all the broadcast rights for the Canadian teams. They said, would you move to Toronto? I said, yes. And I went off to Toronto for, I think it was 13 or 14 years, and did some stuff for TSN, did some radio, lots of the Toronto Maple Leaf radio games. And then when the Winnipeg Jets came back into the National Hockey League, TSN, Paul Graham, who was a friend of mine, said, "We get the rights, would you go to Winnipeg?" I said, "In a heartbeat." And the rest is history. Here we are 10 years later.
Yeah, it is.
As short as I can tell that story. I'm sorry.
Well, no, listen, it's an incredible journey. There's so much experience in a lot of different areas of the hockey business that I think it's important for people to know. And it's one of the things I think that makes you such a great broadcaster, because you're able to bring things from like a view of the business, how things work, that a lot of people don't have. Tell us about the decision to come to Winnipeg, though. Was it an automatic? I mean, you had a pretty good gig. You're in Toronto. You know, the Leafs, we've had a couple people that were mentioning they were watching the Jets feed of some games this year that you have done, and it reminded of your time calling Leaf games, where obviously you've still got some fans. Was it to be part of something new? Was it to get back to Manitoba? Was it all of the above?
All of the above. And there was one more sidebar to it, that things were changing in Toronto. I still had some time left on my contract. Had a ton of fun in Toronto. Jim Ralph and I did the radio games when Joe Bowen was doing television. Came out to about the 55, 56 games a year is what I did on radio. And maybe the best compliment Jim Ralph and I ever got was people said it was like sitting in a bar talking to you guys as you were broadcasting the game. And that's what we tried to do. We tried to just, and you know this from your experience in radio, and that's kind of what we all strive for, is just to be part of people's days. But there was things changing in Toronto. And it was interesting because when it first started, the people at Chorus Radio in Toronto said, "Look, there's a chance that CJOB is going to get the rights. Maybe drop in there in case they have some questions." And that's kind of where the whole thing got started. And then it just kind of went to the wayside. Nobody knew what was happening with the rights. Bev and I were on our way to Wenatchee, Washington. We spend the summers in Kelowna, as you know. We were on our way to Wenatchee, Washington to visit some friends. We were at the Safeway wine store in Omak, Washington. My cell phone rang. I recognized the number as a TSN number, and it was Paul Graham saying, "It looks like we're going to get the rights. Would you move to Winnipeg?" And the opportunity to come back to the province where I grew up in, there's always something intriguing about, and I know this wasn't the first broadcast job with the Winnipeg Jets, but it was the first broadcast job with the Winnipeg Jets, who were back in the National Hockey League after 15 years. There's always something special about being first. And, you know, I love challenges. I love opportunities. And this one was simply too good to pass up. And you know, maybe other than getting married, probably the best decision I've ever made in my life.
Good answer, Dennis. There's a veteran right there for you. It has been an amazing 10-year ride. I think all of us that have been around the hockey club and just the city, even from a fan's perspective, knows how much it really changed the sports fabric of Winnipeg. What was that first year and even first game, hell, the first preseason game like for you? We've been watching these Jets Legends pieces that Balls and the guys at the Jets have put together that have been so much fun to watch. Even for someone with as much experience for you, I imagine that season, especially those early games, probably really stand out as career highlights.
Well, first off, I was getting out of radio and going into television more. And even though I had done a number of TSN games, I had done some NHL games for TSN, the second half of doubleheaders with Ryan Walter. I had done some other events for TSN on television. So I understood television, but this was going to be more of a full-time television gig. So people asked me about that first preseason game, the split squad game with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It was Brian Engblom and I. And I'll be honest, a lot of leading up to that was a blur because I was so focused on making sure that I didn't mess this thing up, which I almost messed up when I go back to my Edmonton days. But again, we'll save that one for the book. I was so focused on that I didn't want to mess that up, that I was really concentrating on that. And turned out the game went really well. And, again, it went from there. And, I certainly remember Dustin Byfuglien right off the bat, getting into a big scrap. And I just remember the people, though. This was the NHL. This was the NHL, and it didn't matter whether it was a split squad game. Didn't matter what was going on. They were excited about what was about to happen. So it was good.
Oh, it certainly is. Now let's get back to this year's squad right now. I think different people, I think people closer to the team knew what this group was capable of. And especially when you're starting off with a goaltender like Connor Hellebuyck and the elite talent the team has up front, you're going to have a chance to win your fair share of games. But how would you compare the team's performance this year to what you expected? Is this sort of where you thought they'd be? Have they overachieved, if you will, or have they just improved over the course of this season to be in the spot they are right now, still challenging for first place in the North?
Yeah, they maybe, there was so many questions about the defensive core, and we all had them, and rightfully so. I mean, we kind of saw what Neil Pionk brought last year after the Jacob Trouba trade. Was his progress going to continue? We knew what Josh Morrissey could do. We knew what Tucker Pullman could do. The question mark to me going into camp was Derek Forbort. Was Derek Forbort going to be able to play in the top four and play top 4 minutes with the Winnipeg Jets? Turns out the answer to that is yes. Logan Stanley jumped in and did a better job, I think, than a lot of people expected him to. So I think the defense core has done a better job as a group than maybe what we expected, or at least I expected at the start of the year. And not maybe expected, it's too harsh of a word. There was question marks, let's put it that way. So we knew what Connor Hellebuyck would do. We knew up front what this team could do. There was question marks about the signing of Nate Thompson, Trevor Lewis, and Paul Maurice for years has talked about a veteran fourth line. And he tried that last year. It didn't work because of injuries. And it has worked this year for the Winnipeg Jets. So I think this is an exciting team. I know there was some disappointment in the fan base on the trade deadline day that a Matthias Ekholm or a Josh Manson or a Jamie Alexiak didn't make get into a Winnipeg Jets jersey, but those players never got traded. I firmly believe, and again, from being on the other side, I've been involved in some trades where you think it's done and then something happens and it's not done, and then you don't have time because there's a deadline to get it done. We got Chris Osgood from Kelly McCrimmon and the Brandon Wheat Kings when we had the Memorial Cup in Seattle, and Kelly was as shrewd a guy to deal with as there ever was in the Western Hockey League, and I think we're seeing some of that in the National Hockey League right now as well. We got that deal done. And we were trying to convince him that Milt Masted was a better fit for him because we were better stocked on defense. He wanted Chris Dingman. We didn't want to trade Chris Dingman. We ended up having to trade Chris Dingman because we wanted Chris Osgood. That deal came right down to the wire, and it was basically, like 15 seconds before the trade deadline where a third person, there was myself, Peter Anhold in the room, a third person made the call to the league and said, "Hey, we've got a deal done, so it's going to come in," and we got it done. So anyway, back to trade deadline day. It didn't work out for the Winnipeg Jets, and that's the way it works sometimes. I really believe Kevin Cheveldayoff thought he had a chance at some of these other names that were out there. So now they have what they have, and as long as they stay healthy, it's unfortunate Nathan Beaulieu got hurt, because in a game like last night, I think Nathan Beaulieu might have been a big participant. You go back to last night's game, and we've talked, you guys have talked about Galchenyuk, the Joe Thornton one that he got fined for. To me, the dirtiest hit of all was Foligno on Morrissey. If you look at it, and I slowed it down this morning, and his is perfectly right between the fours on Josh Morrissey's back. And how that one doesn't get called, regardless. So the defense core actually did better as the year went on. Neil Pionk's game progressed. Josh Morrissey's game has progressed. I think Tucker Pullman is fit nicely in there now. So as long as they can stay healthy, they'll be fine. If the depth gets challenged, then we'll see where Logan Stanley is in pressure games, where Ville Heinola is in pressure games, where Dylan Sandberg is in pressure games, where Sami Niku is in pressure games. But that'll all play itself out. As far as the forward group, I think this group is as good as there is in the National Hockey League. And I look for an exciting finish here and bring on the playoffs.
Hey, one more for you, Dennis, and it's been so much fun having you on. A young man you've seen pretty much his entire career. I did a piece for OB today, and I was thinking about the Jets going into the playoffs and this season, and the contributions of everyone. And I mean, Andrew Kopp scores his 15th of the year last night. He's got 36 points in 46 games, and then you think about his contributions on the penalty kill, his contributions on that line that's often has the toughest matchup. What he's done on a second power play unit that's been as productive as the top unit this year. I mean, just comment on his development into the player he is right now. And is there a guy that contributes in more different ways on this hockey club than Andrew Kopp?
The organization always felt that there was more to Andrew Kopp's game than simply being a defensive specialist. That part of the game came so natural to him that it became easy for the coach to use him in those situations. But the feeling always was there was more there. And he was not happy last summer after the arbitration ruling. He felt that there was more dollars out there, and he came back maybe with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. And he was given an opportunity, and he grabbed the opportunity. And that's what you like. That always makes a real good story as far as athletes are concerned. When you're given a chance and you grab that opportunity and you run with it. And he got to play, in the top six. And even when he came down from the top six, still convinced the coach, and the coach was convinced he's done enough to stay on our second power play unit. And you mentioned his point totals compared to his game totals. So when you look just at the point totals, you say, well, that's a pretty good year. But then when you look at the games played and you say, Andrew Kopp's not that far off a point a game player in the NHL. And I think that's a credit to Andrew Kopp and everything that he has done. He understands the game so well. When we were allowed to go in the dressing room, if you were ever looking for an explanation, Kevin Sawyer relied on certain people. When you were looking for a real good explanation as to why this happened or what are you going to do going into this game, he was one of the guys you would go to. You'd go to him, you'd go to an Adam Lowry, you'd go to a Josh Morrissey. You'd go to some of those guys that really understood that part of the game and were more than willing to share that. And good for Andrew Kopp because he's worked for absolutely everything that he has got so far.
Dennis, you are the best. It was so much fun having you on the program. Hopefully we can do this again sometime. You be well, be safe. Love to Bev, and we'll hopefully have a great hockey game tomorrow night downtown.
Huss, compliments and congratulations to you and Michael Remis. I think this market, there is a need in this market for what you are doing, what Kenny and Rennie are doing, what CJOB does after the games and our old employer, TSN 1290, was doing. I just think there's such a need in the market here for what you are doing. So congratulations for your undertaking here. Keep up the good work and stick with it.
Hey, thanks so much, my friend. You have a great one, and we will talk again soon. Thanks so much.
All right, Huss, take care.
There he is, the man himself, voice of the Jets, 10 years in now here in the Peg, the one and only Dennis Beyak. Really appreciated Dennis joining us today here on the program. We've got a lot more Jets-Leafs talk coming up on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. But just quickly, we'll remind you that spring is here. I know it was gorgeous yesterday, not so nice today. It's going to be getting nice, though. And spring legitimately is here. The snow is gone. It's time to get outside and dominate spring, and no better place to do that than Royal Sports. They've got the expanded fitness center. Saw on their Instagram yesterday a bunch of new bikes coming in, and bikes are tough to get right now. Not to mention soccer, baseball, and the best selection of licensed merchandise anywhere, period. 650 Rally in EK, 750 Pembina Highways, the Royal Sports Superstore. And it's the weekend. Maybe you check out the Nick and Nicky DQs, DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, Polo Park, and St. Anne's. And as I mentioned a couple shows ago, Nick's just fired up the 2 for $5 treat nights at all 4 stores after 8 p.m. Either 2 medium cones, dip cones, or 2 medium sundaes, 7 days a week after 8 p.m. at the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs. And of course, if you're going to need a cake, hit them up, the Niverville store, as well as Northgate stores. Masters when it comes to putting those things together. Big thanks to Nick and Nikki for their support of the program. All right. We've got some more things to get to at the end of the show, some funny stuff, but let's continue talking Jets Leafs. And it is a real pleasure to welcome into the program. He is the co-host of Hockey Central on the Fan 590 and does all sorts of contributions to Sportsnet. It's Justin Bourne. Justin, what's going on? Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm disappointed I missed Dennis Beyak. I haven't talked to him since I was maybe 13 years old. We played golf together in Kelowna, BC once, and I want to know if he remembers it. But I've watched him with great admiration for his career and haven't talked to him in 25 years. So one day it'll happen.
No doubt. Well, once we get back to normal and we actually have the media traveling and, and meeting people and seeing people in person again, we'll certainly make that happen. Thanks so much for joining us. I've always wanted to get you on, and now that we're more independent, this has been a long time coming, so thanks for doing this. And it's an exciting time right now for fans, certainly in Toronto, fans here in Winnipeg, fans in Edmonton. Pretty interesting three-horse race for first place. But let's focus in on this Jets-Leafs series and start off with last night's game. What did you think about the Leafs 5-3 win?
Well, the Leafs aren't a mystery. They have some great offensive players, and when they're good, they're tough to beat. If you can shut them down, you got a chance. And Hellebuyck wasn't his best. He's a Vezina-winning, fantastic goaltender, but rocky start to the game, and that kind of put the Jets behind the eight ball a little bit. But still, it's never over with the Jets. Ehlers and Connor right now are just unbelievable to watch. Probably my favorite duo in the Canadian division, just because McDavid and Draisaitl aren't playing together. So they're a ton of fun when they're together, and it's just exciting hockey when these two teams play.
You know what? You brought up Nikolai Ehlers. He was nice enough to jump on with us for a good 20 minutes earlier this week, talking about the season he's having and all that. And, I have to ask you, being out in Toronto and, kind of being working for the national broadcaster, we've been talking about Ehlers for a long time around here. And even on the Winnipeg Jets at times, he has been, I don't want to say a secondary player. He's far from that, but hasn't been on the top line at times. But it seems like more and more people are taking notice of just how good Nikolai Ehlers is. Are you seeing and hearing more people talking about number 27 outside of the Winnipeg market these days?
Yeah, it's fascinating too, is like the most polarizing guy in the Toronto market is Willie Nylander. And, there's a lot of overlap between those two guys where their coaches don't tend to see them the way that a lot of the fan base does. They don't give them the huge minutes. They don't give them all the praise and everything else that a lot of the fans think they're worthy of. But it's interesting because the coaches are also putting them in a situation where they can thrive, right? And I know that's been a conversation there in Winnipeg is Paul Maurice and Ehlers' minutes. And, some players are just better suited to eat the lunch of the lessers. And it seems like Ehlers is that guy, and that's, Elliot Friedman has made the case that maybe Ehlers would be a sneaky heart type guy, but I think unless you're playing the toughest matches and the matchups and the biggest minutes, it's tough to get into that conversation. But that doesn't devalue your contributions when you're being put in a position like Ehlers is. All you can do is play the minutes you're given. He's killing those minutes. So tremendous year for him. Just an interesting topic when you talk about the best players in the NHL, where you see him just because of the type of role he plays for the Jets.
Hey, as far as the North Division goes right now, I was saying to Dennis, maybe the thing that I'm the most surprised about is that we essentially know the 4 playoff teams right now with 3 weeks left to go. I mean, I guess Vancouver could go on some sort of miracle run. I doubt it. And I think we can pretty much stick a fork in the Calgary Flames. The Flames might be one of the most disappointing teams this year in the NHL. How surprised are you, frankly, that it's pretty much set in stone, the 4 teams, with still a dozen games left in a shortened season?
Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm genuinely shocked. If you went back and look at my preseason predictions for how this division was going to shake out, I had the Jets as the biggest wild card. I said anywhere from 2 to 6, and I could see it. And they might finish 1 yet, so they were a huge wild card. The Canucks were another team that would not have surprised me if they were really good or really bad. So being really bad, I'm not going to say I'm shocked. Certainly, they're on the low end of expectations. But the Flames I was most wrong on. I thought this was a team that a 2-3 seed, everyone in the division looked like they were going to play the same way to me. And it's like, okay, the Jets, tons of offense. I don't know about that defense. Leafs, offense. Not sure about the defense. Canucks, Same thing. You can go do that down the line. But the Flames, you like that decor. You like their depth up front. I don't know. I can't explain it. They can't either. They fired the coach. Still nothing better. At some point now, you got to say, okay, the core is the problem because we can't seem to fix it with superficial changes.
Well, I've been doing some shows with Pat Steinberg in afternoons over in Calgary, and it's been fascinating, being in this market and really focusing on the teams that have a lot to play for and are excited about the playoffs. And, Calgary, the fear for Calgary is in that market that they're once again in no man's land. Like, people are worried they're going to go on a little bit of a run here at the end of the season and, again, just be good enough to pick 13th or 14th overall in the draft. But I have to say, considering where we're at in Brad Treleving's tenure there and the aggressive move to fire Jeff Ward and bring in Daryl Sutter, who we know is going to be there next season, it certainly sounds like there is going to be some significant moves in the offseason. And for the first time in a while, significantly shaking up that core that has been there for the last few years, dating back to, when they were the top team in the West before getting bounced in 5 games by the Avalanche a couple seasons ago.
It's funny, like they finished as the top team in the West, and since then it's been like bad news for the Flames. I mean, you get bounced by the Avalanche in the first round, and they had the Bill Peters situation, the coach firing. It's been bad, and unfortunately, Treliving now has been there for this is 5th head coach. The core is kind of aging out. It looks like you might need to rebuild and restructure. And if you're saying, all right, you've had however many years, it's been 9, it's been a long time with him at the helm. At some point, are you going to want him to be the guy who makes the decisions about your core and your biggest players? Maybe you're comfortable with it. I certainly think he's a capable guy who's made a lot of good decisions. But at some point, the stench reaches the highest part of the organization. He's just like, it's not been good enough, and someone's going to have to pay the price.
Justin Bourne is with us. Remis, if you can, give me that note again. Dennis, of course, you mentioned the golfing, Justin. Dennis is listening, or obviously tuning in afterwards, heard you mentioned. And he said that he remembers that you guys almost got hit by lightning on that round.
That shows how bad my memory is. I remembered playing golf with Dennis, so maybe he was that impactful to me, but I don't remember almost getting hit by lightning.
It would have been a heck of a round, I'll say. There's been some good hockey talk, even if you were only 13 years old. So moving on from the also-rans and the teams that won't be in the playoffs, let me ask you this. Considering where the Habs are right now, the makeup of their team, questions with injuries, goaltending and whatnot, how much of an advantage is it for one of these 3 teams to win the North and get the Habs in the first round and avoid a 2-3 matchup of 2 of the top 3 teams in the division?
Like sitting here today, I want to say it's a huge advantage, and, they're struggling and you want to play the lesser team and yada, yada. But like, can't you see a scenario where you draw Montreal and Carey Price gets hot and all of a sudden their scoring depth, you're getting scored on by Philip Deneau and Thomas Tatar. And,
ask the Pittsburgh Penguins, huh?
Yeah. Like, it's really easy to construct a scenario in my head where you're like, oh man, we drew Pittsburgh. If only it was Edmonton, so yeah, like right now they look bad and it's easy to say you want them, but I don't know, man, there's enough there to think that they're not going to be a pushover either.
Give me, let's handicap the top 3 teams for us right now. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the Leafs have the upper hand when it comes to first place. But, regardless of how the regular season ends, let's look ahead to the playoffs. And if you had to handicap or rank the teams, in terms of their, opportunity to succeed in the playoffs and get out of the North, how would you rank Toronto, Winnipeg, and Edmonton?
Just like that, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Edmonton. With the Oilers remind me of the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron James was the only good player on the team and he was dragging them to the finals with like you, me, and their dog to get to the, for the rest of the rotation. And, he could only do so much. But in basketball, you can touch the ball every possession. You can be on the court for 48 minutes. You can be the guy. The Oilers are not a very good team with 2 of the 3 best players in the world, 2 of the 5 best players in the world, depending on where you sit on subjectivity. But I just think those guys are so good and so impactful and so dangerous. They're going to beat you some nights. Can they beat you 4 times out of 7? It's asking an awful lot. So the Jets, to me, just are far more depth to their lineup and way better goaltending. So it's the Toronto, Winnipeg, Edmonton for me.
Yeah, goaltending. surprisingly, was a bit of a story in an unusual way here in Winnipeg last night. Connor Hellebuyck didn't have a great start and got pulled, although he did say today he shouldn't have gotten pulled, and he'll be back in.
Did he say that?
Oh yeah. He said I thought I was playing good enough to win. Didn't like the call, and Maurice for his part says I love that. I'll tell you what, goalies are already a bit of a different breed, but there's goalies and then there's Hellebuyck. And I mean, he's
a goalie, isn't he?
He's maybe the most interesting and entertaining interview, not just in Winnipeg, but one of my favorites in the entire league. Yeah. And the one thing, and it does not matter if he gives up 6 goals on 7 shots and get yanked, he'll come afterwards and say, you know what? I like my game. I believe in what I'm doing. I mean, he has a level of confidence and belief that sometimes defies reality, but it's a big part of what has made him a Vezina Trophy winner. And I'll tell you what, a guy that when you break down these teams and knowing how important goaltending is I think a real source of confidence for both Jet fans as well as players in that room.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm just thinking of like interesting things said in the media lately. And you have Hellebuyck saying that he didn't think he should be pulled. You have Elvis Merzlikins last night saying, you know, like it's basically a train wreck in Columbus. He just wants to delete the season, forget about it, never think about it again. You have Robin Leonard talking about being lied to about the vaccinations and, you know, the whatever else in Vegas he was on about. I mean,
it's all goalies.
Goalies, man. It's all goalies. You had Jordan Binnington fake punching people not that long ago. It's like it's high drama coming from the crease. Thank God for them, or we'd have no personality in the game at all.
Hey, you know, you brought up Elvis Merzlikins, and we're going to listen to those comments a little later on. I mean, it's stunning what has happened there, and especially for people in Winnipeg. I mean, Patrick Laine is still, a huge favorite of, I would say, the majority of Jet fans. And, you know, I think even though he was traded in a deal, people are excited about Pierre-Luc Dubois, who, you know, Maurice said, maybe had his best game as a Jet last night and seems to be getting ready into playoff form. I have to ask you, I mean, what do you make of that situation in Columbus right now? I mean, it seems like it couldn't get much worse.
They can't keep talent in Columbus. And that's in the NHL, you just can't win if you can't keep your guys. If, you know, Panarin doesn't want to stay there and Bobrovsky doesn't want to stay there and Duchesne doesn't want to stay there, and over and over, it's so hard. So you need your homegrown talent to be exceptional. You know, a guy like Dubois wants out of town because he's not getting along with the coach. It's just really, really hard to maintain the team and contend. And once it falls apart and you don't have the elite talent and you've lost some of that doubt, you're in real trouble. You know, Tortorella had those guys pulling in the right direction and believing in the cause. And now that they're a seller, Nick Foligno's out of the room. You know, the stars aren't there. It's bad. Tortorella, I guess, is, you know, who wants to pay 2 coaches in a season? You're not going to win anyway. Maybe that's what's going on there. But it's tough to watch for a city that has built a fighting, scrappy team for years, despite a lack of talent. It's tough to watch right now.
I mean, listen, I think Jarmo Kekalainen is the guy going forward and will be the one that will presumably get a new coach next season. But, you know, when we look to the offseason, I'm not sure there's a more interesting spot in the league as far as pretty much, I think everything is on the table. You know, I mean, listen, the top stars are getting benched regularly by the head coach. I would imagine, considering what they gave up to get the likes of Laine and Roslovic, they'll try and find someone else to come in and make that work. But as far as the rest of the roster, I mean, as well as the coaching staff, I mean, I think we could see a million possibilities once we get to the offseason.
Yeah, I've got a ton of respect for Kekalainen and how he's handled that. Like, you know, the reality is, I guess Winnipeg can kind of feel some of the Columbus pain in terms of attracting stars. Can at times be hard in the UFA market. So he's done his best to bring in, you know, via trade, other people who could use a fresh start. And, you know, Max Domi was one of those guys. Laine is one of those guys. But it just hasn't worked out. Those guys haven't taken to the team, and, you know, now they're trying to figure out what to do next. Again, I love Kekalainen. He's done everything he can with the tools he's been given, but you're right. I have no idea what's going to happen next. I imagine, you know, they'll spend some money in free agency if they can, but it's impossible to predict what's going to come of the Jackets.
Sportsnet's Justin Bourne with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Like most Canadians, especially people in Canadian markets, we've been really focusing on the North Division. It's sort of like our own Canadian league right now. As host of Hockey Central, I know you've been paying a lot of attention to the other divisions as well. Maybe not quite as much as the North, of course. But let me ask you this. I was talking with Pat and the guys yesterday in Calgary on this, and we were talking about that East Division. I mean, going into last night's game, you had 1 point separating the Islanders, Capitals, and Penguins, and the Bruins were 4 back with 2 games in hand and had probably been playing the best of, the 4 teams coming over the last 3 weeks heading into the convo. I mean, when you look at that division, I mean, is there any team that sticks out amongst those? And honestly, once those 4 teams go at it in 2 best-of-7s, what's going to be left of the team that gets out of the East?
Yeah. Well, that's another reason to be hungry for this North Division, something that should be, exciting for Jets fans, right? Like, if you get out of this division, there's going to be some decimated teams, because some of the other top 4s, boy, you look at, Colorado, Minnesota, Vegas, and I guess St. Louis, they're struggling, but there's good teams in other divisions too. So, tough to pick a favorite. They do play quite a bit differently, some of those teams, but the Islanders are just so tough to put away in a single game because they smother you so much on the defensive side of things. I know I've got a bit of Islanders bias given my history, but it's really tough for me to see a team handling the Islanders 4 straight times. So I like the Capitals probably as the favorite, but I mean, Boston got Taylor Hall, Pittsburgh's got the easiest schedule and might win the division yet. So absolute crapshoot. Really fun to watch those 4 teams go at it coming up here.
Well, let me ask you about that other division, because I kind of see it similar to the North, maybe with higher end talent. I mean, at the top of it, you've got Carolina, Tampa, and Florida, who have been great. Now it looks like Nashville is sort of, probably that 4th team. But considering how good those teams have been and how difficult that 2-3 series is, might that division be the one where it's most important to win?
Sure, I think it probably is. I'm not much of a believer in whatever's going to be in the 4 spot there, whether it's Nashville, Dallas might be the other real contender there. So yeah, super tough. Super, super important to finish first there. The one thing that I do know, or at least the one thing I do think, is I think a lot of fans look at that division and go, Carolina, it's great. They're winning a lot. Florida, same thing, but they don't see them as legit. Those teams are legit. Florida's built a tougher team that works harder than they've used to with bringing in Gudis and bringing in Sam Bennett and, Wenberg and all these guys that bring a work ethic. And Carolina's got Rod Brindamore and a solid D-core. Those are teams now. Those are not teams that are having good seasons. Those are deep teams for a long time to come. So Tampa's got their hands full. They're struggling. Victor Hedman doesn't look like the Norris guy that we're used to seeing the past month or so. I'm pumped for playoffs this year, but to be honest, it's going to be a long slog to get there because we kind of know who the teams are in every division. I just kind of want to get her started.
Well, and as far as the West goes, we touched on that for a minute. I can't see any scenario where we don't get a second-round matchup between the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights. And to be honest, dude, that might be the best series of the entire Stanley Cup playoffs.
It might be the Cup final. It's silly with the NHL, the way it is and the way it's organized. It's tough to get the best against the best in the final like the NBA gets so often. But no, Colorado, Vegas is happening, and I love that it's going to happen. As much as it might feel close to the Cup final, I love that it's happening before the 4th round, so we hopefully see the teams healthier. It's so sad when you pit 2 teams, all year you look at, all right, one from the East, one from the West. By the time they meet each other in the final, there's 32 injuries, and they're playing the AHL teams, so happy they'll get a crack in round 2.
Justin Bourne's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. JT, before we go, I wanted to throw this at you, and I think you tweeted on this. I talked about it with the guys yesterday in Calgary, and I find this fascinating. And I'll give you a little bit of the backstory for the people that are listening right now if they're not sure, if they haven't heard about this. So the PGA Tour has created a $40 million player impact program. It's designed to award players who are judged to, quote, drive fan and sponsor engagement and move the needle. In addition to on-course performance, players are going to be ranked against their peers in other ways, including Google search popularity, Nielsen brand exposure rating, Q rating, and social media impact. $40 million is going to be split amongst the top 10 players, and the top guy is going to get $8 million. A lot of cash. I thought this was brilliant with the way that they are trying to market and get their players to be out there more. And it makes a lot of sense for individual contractors. I could not help but think when I read this the first time, man, this is something the National Hockey League could probably use. Hockey and baseball are so far behind some of the other sports in really marketing their stars, the personality of it. But at the same time, when you think about the hockey culture, if you will, It's always about the team. And it's sort of sometimes, I think, frowned upon to be that individual and be out there. Could the NHL, and I don't know how you would set this up, how exactly you would reward certain people for doing it, but I think we agree that more of the players out there is better for the game and better for the league. But could something like what the PGA is doing be beneficial to a league like the NHL, do you think?
Yeah, the goalies we talked about earlier might be seeing some bucks, a lot of value in running your mouth. The first thing I thought of when I saw that is like, hey, I hate Patrick Reed, and everyone hates Patrick Reed, but we talk about Patrick Reed. Is Patrick Reed going to get like $8 million the next time he cheats? We hear about him all the time. But it's a fascinating concept, and one I really like from the PGA perspective. If you sell tickets and you show up, you still have to perform. You're not getting compensated for bringing in money for the PGA Tour. The NHL, you're compensated, on your general performance, which makes sense. I do think that, there's huge value in the league for having people who can bring in fans who might not otherwise be hockey fans. And that tends to be people who can engage in social media, and they're willing to do interviews, and they do a good job at them. And I think hockey needs this badly. We really are suffering from a lack of star exposure. I think here in Toronto, we are I'm the host of Hockey Central with Jeff Merrick and Anthony Stewart. I've been on for a year and a half. Maybe we've had 2 Maple Leafs. I think we had Mitch Marner once. Never Austin Matthews, never Nylander. It's not like we're not asking to get these guys. And it's not just our show. It's, the access to these guys, because their demands, in fairness, the demands on these guys are huge, and they have a million things on the go. But I just don't think we know players well enough, and fine, even talking about the Toronto market, move that to other teams. Heaven forbid anyone know who Rupe Hintz is and what he's doing in Dallas, or, we just don't know the players enough. So if they're incentivized to show themselves to all of us and introduce themselves to the world, in a league that's up against the salary cap and sees the middle class pretty heavily squeezed financially, I think it would be the best for the league, for the fans, for the players. We got to find a way to get these guys out there more, because they're really entertaining and really good people in general.
Justin, this has been so much fun having you on the program. Folks, give him a follow at JT Bourne. And for folks, where can people find you? Watch Hockey Central and hear you on Sportsnet. Give us the rundown on where we can see more of your content, JT.
Yeah. If you're Twitter's a good spot, but yeah, sportsnet.ca is where I write. And then I sometimes get to be on TV with some of the Hockey Central pregame shows. So yeah, just tune into Sportsnet.
Hey, when this is all done, we'll get you here for a round, and we'll bring out Dennis Beyak and get the band back together.
I would love that. That sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your time. There he is, Justin Bourne. Give him a follow on Twitter at JT Bourne. He is the co-host of Hockey Central on the Fan 590, and a great hockey follow. Highly recommend you giving him one if you aren't already. Man, that was great stuff. So much fun having Dennis on, and I really was looking forward to having Justin on. He's one of the best in the biz covering hockey in Canada, and it was great to have him on. And shout out to Michael Remis for making that happen. Speaking of Michael Remis, let's check back in with the command center and get my co-host back on here. Remo, great stuff with Dennis. Great stuff with JT. Have you calmed down from the beginning of the program and have you kind of got back into Hellebuyck mode, knowing that you're the best and doing a great job, and we're gonna finish strong?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to have some time here. Listen to some great stories from Dennis, who immediately texted me. He's like, Justin may not remember that we played golf together in Kelowna and almost got struck by lightning. I was like, Justin just mentioned that to start the interview. So I thought it was pretty funny how they're like, hey, the other guy may not remember. It was almost like Match Game or something. Isn't it a newlywed game? But yeah, awesome to hear Dennis. And Justin, I've been following him for a long time. We used to have him on, I think, with Rick all the time. And then when he was with the Athletic, and then we couldn't when he moved places. But now I was like, hey, let's call Justin. He's got a lot of experience playing pro hockey. And being involved, on the coaching side as well. So good to hear his insight on the Leafs and the Jets.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Those are 2 great interviews, and I have to say, this is a perfect example of why this format and this show is, to be honest, in my opinion, better than what we were able to do before. Because again, we can have a lot of fun. Obviously we've got incredible sponsors that are enabling us to do this. But I mean, we just had the voice of the Jets on TSN followed by the host of Hockey Central on Sportsnet. And as independent contractors, Reem, we can play with everybody right now. So, I mean, it's a heck of a way to do it. And, I mean, obviously, we're appreciative of the support of those guys to come on right now. But I have to say it more and more as we get into this project with Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'm thankful for the fact that, now pretty much doors are open in all ways. And obviously, even the highlight of the week, I think, for us and a lot of our listeners was getting Nikolai Ehlers on earlier on. So, I mean, to me, we've got the best of both worlds right now. And obviously, we've got incredible support from all the people that are hanging with us every day here on the YouTube channel.
Yeah, I love reading the chat and seeing everyone fired up about the Jets. Most people, 99% of the people have been positive and bring great comments and great insight on the hockey. And you get the odd thing here or there, but we can move on and have some, continue to have a great chat and have some great discussions about the Winnipeg Jets hockey team and of course the Bombers. We talked to Willie Jefferson yesterday and whatever else fun stuff we want to bring up. I know we had a lot of fun about Tom Brady's Instagram post about not liking the new number rules in the NFL.
By the way, Brady last night, and we were talking about him, he does have a pretty good social media presence. But he did that tweet where he was complaining about all the numbers on Instagram. And then on Twitter, he posted it and quote tweeted it with, "I'd like to speak to the manager."
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, listen, I can't stand him. Well, actually, I can stand him. I have like an incredible respect for him, but he's been a nemesis of mine for a long time. And I'm counting down the 10 or 11 months until the Chiefs get revenge on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that will be a story. Speaking of the Chiefs and the NFL, draft next week. We'll definitely have Andy Mack on. Reed Fowler's going to join us. We will get some NFL content next week as we get ready for the draft. But listen, before we get to the cool bet lines, Remis, a couple things I wanted to get to. Why don't we get the Elvis Merzlikins up here? Because I know you've got that clip. Justin and I talked about it. Was very weird last night. They lose to Tampa 3-1. Empty net goal. It was a 2-1 game. And I believe it was the winning goal. Was a play where Elvis Merzlikins literally got whacked in the throat right before the game. Now, what everyone was talking about, including the media afterwards to John Tortorella, who really didn't have a good answer, was why in the world he didn't challenge for goalie interference. Anyways, I think all of that sort of just built up and the losing, the horrible season they've had, the mood around Columbus right now. And as Justin said, we got some gold from a very frustrated goalie last night in Elvis in Columbus. Here it is.
I'm tired. I'm tired of losing the game. I know we are trying, but this is getting embarrassing. It's just it is what it is. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. It's painful. I mean, sitting in that locker room, and trust me, we are trying. We seriously are trying. We didn't give up, but it's just really so bad year. I think that I just want to finish it and delete this year and not think about it.
What a line.
Finish the year, delete it, and not think about it. And to be honest, I love stuff like that because it's honest, it's real, and you'd have to think, Remis, that pretty much every member of the Columbus Blue Jackets, including a couple former Winnipeg Jets that have a lot of fans here in the Peg, are feeling the exact same way. Hell, Tortorella's probably feeling that same way.
It just seems like it's worse and worse there. How bad can it get? And then he's like, he's like, we are on a 7-game losing streak. We're on our way to becoming Buffalo. That's when you know it's really bad. And we've been speculating that John Tortorella not going to be brought back as head coach there.
How can they? I'm amazed that they didn't do it already, just to maybe, just so you didn't have stuff like that from Elvis after the game. But I guess they're just going to run out the string with him.
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to delete memory like that and just put it away and not think about it. And he was saying how the losing's affecting him too. He said he can't sleep. I mean, it's got to be tough coming to work knowing you're just going to get pumped every time and there's nothing really you can do. He said we're trying. You just feel helpless. And they had a good year last year. I mean, they made it to the playoffs, beat the Leafs, and now you're into this. So I don't know what you do next. They were the big winners of the deadline to me, getting the 2 first-round picks for David Savard and Nick Foligno. Those are nice players, but just says, what was available at the trade market. So we all want Columbus to succeed, especially if you're here and you're still a fan of Patrick Laine. But I think we're going to be watching them from afar.
Hey, shout out to BA. Split just dropped a fin in the super chat. Remo, buy yourself a beer. Yeah. Don't be so hard on yourself. You are the man. Split is right. You are.
I'm trying, guys. I'm sorry.
All right. Now, I think it was Wrench Doozer that was asking about we were having a little fun about the perceived feud between Blake Wheeler and Paul Friesen of the Winnipeg Sun. So, why don't we get the clip up? This was this was the way things started last night. Blake Wheeler returns, of course, and I guess Paul was on the call. I had to laugh when this was the way
did you see in your
started.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just pull this up here. I got
sure. You'll get that up now. I will say this: as disappointing as the game was last night. The post game was pretty entertaining, although I would have much rather had just a boring we won post game than what happened. But anyways, this was the captain and his close personal friend Paul Friesen after the game.
What did you see in your team's start, or was it just a tough start for Connor?
I need to make note of this. Paul, I only talk to you after games like this.
Seems that way.
No, it is that way. I thought that'd be good to point that out.
There you go.
All right, that was the clip. I couldn't hear that, but I'm not sure. Could everyone in the chat hear that?
Oh, I may have muted it for you. Ah, geez, sorry.
They're laughing at it, but can we just play it again?
Yeah, I'll play it one more time. Hold on.
This is again, just in case you guys didn't hear it, and then we'll discuss.
Oh no, it played. You just.
Oh, okay.
Here, we'll go back.
So it was like, it seems like this is the times we're going to talk, and then Friesen sort of goes, yeah, it does seem that way, and then it is that way, and you know what? Like I said, Blake, hey, he's got a long memory, I guess. And I guess there's been some things that have been written about the team or him at times that he didn't like. And but it just seems, and listen, he's a classy guy. I mean, he does the interviews and, but sometimes he just needs to get a little bit out. And it was obvious last night, Remo, from the captain and the coach that there was a lot of frustration about that game last night. But I think as we're hearing from the practice today, as well as some of the comments from the Jets and the coach, that it's time to wash that one and get ready for another big challenge tomorrow night against the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, they know it was a bad game. They know they're able to play better. You look at the body of work this season. I mean, for the most part, I think I was saying a couple of weeks ago that the Jets fans got nothing to be upset about. It's going great. Now, you lose 2 in a row, on the verge of losing 3 in a row for the first time this season. Your Vezina Trophy goalie, lets in a couple softies, gets pulled. I mean, I don't want to say this is like the low point of the season, because really, like, how bad could it be when you got Elvis Merzlikins saying, I want to delete the season? I want to delete the season. So it's actually been pretty good. You got a bit of a bump here. And I agree with what Leibel said earlier this week on the show. Was like, there is nothing new that I can learn about this team. And I agree. The Jets are who we think they are. They have some great players. They have some issues on defense. And, they're going to look great at games. And then they're going to have games where, they don't look as great. And you just hope that they get hot in the playoffs and can play like we've seen them play in the past against Toronto. I still think they can do that. And I'm sure they'll be fired up on Saturday. There's a lot of people here in chat saying the Jets, the record on Hockey Night in Canada on national games this year hasn't been the best. I don't have like the math on that. If someone wants to add that up, I'm kind of curious what it is versus regional games versus national. If anyone has those numbers, that would be interesting. So I don't know if that's just the perception. I think that's been the perception house for a couple seasons though with the Jets.
All right. Hey, listen, if you can, Remo, I just want to play again the Maurice clip from last night from the Jason Bell question, because he was in incredible form last night. And from what I'm reading from Mike McIntyre, had a couple beauties as well today from the availability. But if you just popped in, we hit a few Maurice quotes from earlier today. But the one the one that could very well become a clip on Winnipeg Sports Talk going forward was his obvious frustration being expressed about a lack of anything on the Galchenyuk elbow on Adam Lowry. But, he expressed how choked he was about that at the beginning. But then a little later on, Jason Bell of the Free Press asked him about, being a coach, but the line between wanting a response, but also wanting to, chase the game and try and get back into a close game. This is Jason Bell with Maurice last night.
You wonder if some people will wonder, should there be a response when there's a perceived high hit? As a coach, do you like the fact that maybe in a tight hockey game there wasn't, or is it how do you kind of balance the approach there with your hockey team?
If you circle a guy's name on the board, you get sued.
The combination of the line, the delivery, and then just that the nonplussed face at the end of it made that. The more I think about it, that might have been a top 10 Paul Maurice presser from his time in Winnipeg. And as I said earlier, Remis, the bar has been set very, very high. I mean, in all seriousness, we are lucky when it comes to having Paul Maurice as this head coach, because, I mean, he answers the questions, he lets you know how he feels, and every now and then you get some real legitimate emotion like we got last night from the coach, and I think fans are here for it. I sure as hell am.
If you circle a guy's name on the board, you get sued.
Yeah, I have that on a button right now. So that's it. I mean, the face at the end, he's not happy, and he's like, "Look, like, even if I did, if we did go in the room and say, hey, this, Galchenyuk just took out our newly signed, shut down center. I'm not gonna tell you that we, I'm sure they talked about it, but yeah, he can't. I'm sure they just like wink at each other, and be like, hey, like, that wasn't cool that he did that. We got to do something about it.
Yeah, well, listen, the story certainly isn't over. At least the media was asking Coach Maurice about it today. And here's Mike McIntyre tweeting, NHL Jets coach Paul Maurice, when asked if he believes the Maple Leafs are a dirty team. This is money. I don't think so. The league has said they're not, so we'll abide by the league's rulings. But they are a poorer team. There's some fines. Probably looking at some part-time jobs now.
That's probably what he looked like while saying that.
yeah, that's exactly right. Of course, as Mike mentioned, Zach Hyman got fined last week for hitting Neil Pionk in the face with the stick. Thornton got fined today for hitting Matthew Perreault in the head. There was Foligno's hit from behind on Josh Morrissey, and then Adam Galchenyuk injuring Adam Lowry with the headshot right now. So I'll tell you what, I'm here for Paul Maurice being pissed off right now, and I think they've got a pretty good reason to be exactly that. And hopefully that will come out in the way the team attacks the Leafs right off the opening faceoff tomorrow night in a big game downtown.
The comments in chat, everyone says he looks like a pissed off dad. I'm sure like you could do like a nice meme. I'm sorry for people listening to podcast. Like with this picture, you got like the white text on top and like something on the bottom. I mean,
it'll be a WST original.
It reminds me of like an Office Space like Lumberg. Yeah, I'm gonna have to ask you to, give me hand in those TPS reports.
Man.
It was yeah. So this has been the most entertaining these press conferences have been all year, other than maybe Patrick Laine off the beginning of the year being like, hey, I'm here, aren't I? And we all know how that ended.
You're right. The Jets YouTube will have all of this from today. We'll have some fun with that. And, of course, looking forward to the game tomorrow. Speaking of which, tomorrow, I do believe I'm going to be jumping on the CJOB pregame show tomorrow, 2 hours before the game. So you'll certainly want to check that out. Remo, I want to do a quick golf update for our friends at Breezy Bend Country Club. Course opened again yesterday. Everyone seemed to be quite pumped to get back out. It was beautiful. I don't know how many people are golfing today. But again, if you're thinking about joining one of Winnipeg's premier private clubs, they've got a waiting list right now for next season. Find out more at breezybend.ca. So it's the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. Henrik Stenson and Justin Rose tied with my guy Tony Finau, who's paired up with Cameron Champ. They're 11 under par. Ricky Rowensky and Peter Uihlein at 10. along with Victor Hovland and Chris Ventura, Billy Horschel, Sam Burns, and Usti and Charles Schwartzel, the South African team. Today, they are playing alternate shot. Tomorrow, it'll be back to best ball and then alternate shot for the final round. Let's get to Cool Bet lines for today. Oh, and by the way, speaking of lines and speaking of wagers, a new edition of the Lock Shop comes up tonight. If you haven't already, and you're listening to the podcast feed, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, search the Lock Shop. It's myself and my good friend Dustin Nielsen from TSN in Edmonton. And we'll broadcast that live from Dusty's Twitter feed at Nielsen TSN 1260 tonight at 9 p.m. in Winnipeg with picks for tomorrow, NHL, Major League Baseball, and the weekly run into the wide world of wagering. And speaking of the wide world of wagering, Remis, before we get to these numbers, Thursday night is the night that I usually, try and find some of these more obscure wagers to make. Now, there are a few things that I can't really put on the program because the timing doesn't work, but I can tell you I'm looking to go back-to-back on the disc golf tour after winning at 4-1 with the Saki Bomb last week. We've got a couple picks for disc golf, and I did win my first KBO bet of the year with the LG Twins last night. I think they played at about 4 a.m, so it was always nice to look up, see a crooked number on the account. Yeah, that's because the LG Twins came in. So on the show, we're going to have an Oscar pick, courtesy of maybe the brightest mind in cinema, the host of Cinephile, Adnan Verk, made a point of yesterday on the program in Calgary asking him for a couple picks. There's a lot of chalk, but I do have a good 2-1 pick for the Oscars, which we'll drop on the program a little later on. But as far as right now, let's take a look at tonight's games and tonight's lines at coolbet.com. A big game with the Chicago Blackhawks taking on the Nashville Predators. Chicago, desperate to get a win if they can do it. Assuming this Calgary-Montreal game is still on, that's an interesting one. Flames, a very slight favorite, -111. Habs, -105. Nashville on the road, favorite against Chicago, -135. And a little later on, Minnesota, a big favorite at -185 against the LA Kings. I've also got Rangers Flyers tonight and Boston, a massive favorite over the Buffalo Sabres. And after an off day, the Blue Jays are back in action today. This is an interesting line, Remis. Blue Jays +151 going up against the Tampa Bay Rays. People still kind of slow to come around to just how good Steven Matz has been for the Jays in his first 3 starts.
Sorry, he has been good, and the Jays lineup has been good. I don't know, Tampa, they got Tyler Glasnow. I mean, he's no slouch himself. He's pretty good. So, you think Matz has been good. 3-0 and a 1.47 ERA. Glasnow's got a 0.73 ERA. So, we'll have to see. I think Glasnow has a better track record. But Matz, I mean, I know Mitch was touting him before the season.
Yes, he was.
He's definitely delivered, and if he's healthy, he's always been a solid pitcher.
Oh, listen, speaking of the chat, the one thing that I meant to mention off the beginning of the program, but we'd be remiss if we did not mention. One Gregory Liverpool was in the chat yesterday, and I asked folks for their predictions for the game. And anyone that was here will remember that Gregory dropped a Winnipeg 9, Toronto 8 prediction in the chat, which we all said, Greg, you're nuts. But Remis, Greg wasn't looking very nuts about 5 minutes into that game last night, was he?
There were so many people commenting at our Twitter. Hey, who was the guy who said 9-8, 9-8 in chat? Because it was looking pretty crazy early on. When it was like 3-2, then. So I was like, yeah, it's G Liverpool. So shout out to Greg, who said the 9-8 prediction, and I screenshot it on our Twitter on Sports Talk WPG of the chat, and it's like he's posting it, and someone's like, let's be realistic here. Another person's like, Greg, you're nuts.
Greg swings for the fences with all of his predictions and all of his takes, and for a little while it looked like Greg was the smartest guy in the room last night with that crazy first period and all of those goals. Hey, folks, if you're with us right now on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that like button. I think you may just need to close the chat, hit the thumbs up. You can get back in there. Definitely really helps us out. And, of course, if you can, spread the word about Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Let your friends know if they haven't already subscribed or downloaded. Get them to do that. We'd love to continue growing the group. And I got to tell you, this has been just an awesome week and really highlighted by Nikolai Ehlers. But, as I mentioned earlier on, today's just a great reason why we're having so much fun doing this, being able to have a great broadcaster like Dennis Beyak join us from TSN, as well as having the Sportsnet guys come on as well from Justin Bourne. So it has been really, really good. Before we go, Remis, what's up for the weekend? You get back at the zoo or what's going on?
Yeah, let me look at the forecast. I think I asked my son yesterday, do you want to go to the zoo? And he said he wanted to go walk around and see the polar bear and tiger he wanted to see. Now, when we get there, it's been a different story, but it is supposed to be it's supposed to be nice. The last 2 times we left with him like kicking and screaming, literally. So it's possible. It's definitely possible.
All right, Kate, there's one more thing we need to discuss before we get out of here. And last night, folks, I was finishing up some work, getting ready for the lock shop, and I realized that, no, Remis, you need to stay on for this. I realized that, you know what, Remis probably streaming right now. And if you haven't already, if you're on Twitch, at mremis, usually playing NHL with a bunch, and some of the crew that are often on his streams are also here. Love to have them.
Oh no.
But I knew that we both got this new baseball game, and I thought, you know what, maybe he's playing the baseball game. I'll just check that out. So I pop in, and all of a sudden I see what looks like one of these, gun games, first-person shooter. There's like zombies and strippers, and it was pretty wild. And I'm looking at it, and there's all these letters on the screen. And then after a little bit, just kind of trying to figure out what game it was, I realized that in the bottom left corner, there's a camera on a keyboard.
Oh,
and
God.
I'm like, oh, wow, this wasn't even a joystick game. He's actually doing it on the keyboard. And then I looked a little closer and realized that this is a typing video game that basically is combining some sort of zombie shooter with typing. And what people maybe do not know is that Michael Remis is, in fact, a typing savant. And I have to tell you, that was a bizarre game. You can let us know what the game was. But I can't believe that you've kind of found the intersection of your typing skills and a video game into what we saw last night on the stream. I just sat there with my jaw wide open, not believing what I was watching.
I can't believe you bring this up. The game's called Typing. I can't believe you bring this up. This has already been a rough day. It's called Typing of the Dead. So yeah, it's a zombie game, but instead of shooting them with a gun, the zombies hold up like phrases that you got to type before they come and get you. And I can type pretty quick, so I figured let's
How did you
try
become
this.
such a good typer? I mean, because you were on the max difficulty, and we're absolutely destroying everything.
Yeah, I'm really fast, so I just learned at a young age. Some people learn how to play like an instrument like guitar, and I learned the keyboard, the computer keyboard. So if you go to like typeracer.com or something, I do that for fun pretty quick. But maybe not. There's always someone better than you, as good as you think you are. So.
Yes, okay, but Split was in there. The Jorgasm?
Yeah,
it Jorgasm? You did get one at one point in that game.
I learned, Mavis Beacon. This is like Mavis, the like 18 plus Mavis Beacon teaches typing, Mike K. This was the craziest game.
Yeah. It's not one to roll out for your 12-year-old to teach them how to type. That's not what we're suggesting here,
I couldn't
folks.
believe how explicit this game was. I remember playing it years ago, but I was like, I got this new computer, I'll try it out. But actually, I want to bring something up, Huss. I know you like opening cards. I do open cards, so I got a pack from Dollarama, just like for fun. At the checkout, they got these packs. I pulled out this beauty. It's a Mr. Rogers card from... It's a Mr. Rogers card from Pro Set 91-92. He's the celebrity captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is one of the weirder cards I've ever pulled. So I'm thinking about getting this thing graded. It's going to be in a top loader. I'm putting that one in the vault. No one's getting a hands on that.
Oh, okay. You know what? Speaking of cards, can you go to your DMs, Reem, and grab that picture I sent you of the card I got in Dusty's break? People will like to see that. So last night, Nielsen, who I'll be doing the lock shop with later on, he's a huge hockey guy. Basically, the leader of the crack pack, always cracking packs. So he hooked up with these guys called the Break Kings, who are doing hockey card breaks. There was one for, it was like 1920 Upper Deck clear cut, really high-end cards. It was 15 boxes, and each box just has one card. They're all autographed or, they're special. So I'm like, you know what? I'll support them. I'll go in on that. I'll buy the Jets, who are one of the cheapest teams. So again, there's only 15 cards. You've probably got about a 50-50 chance of hitting something. Whoever at Philly, I think, got like 3 cards, like really, really nice ones. But I did, in fact, hit a Winnipeg Jet card last night, and it is a beauty. Remis, can you pull it up? There it is, folks. The signed, autographed Sami Niku, 48 out of 83. Upper Deck canvas, beautiful shot of him walking down the hallway beside the Rise Together. I'm not sure whether Sammy has much of a future here in Winnipeg, but Remis, through the beauty of a hockey card break, I have a one-of-a-kind memento of Sammy's time here in Winnipeg, which, to be honest, had a lot of walking around in a suit, which might be why he's in a suit on the hockey card that I got last night.
Yeah, you said one of a kind. That's actually 48 of 93.
That's true.
But yeah, that is actually
it's one of 83, not one of a kind, one of 83, which is his jersey number, of course.
Yeah, actually, I think he's wearing number 8, or he signed it number 8 because he switched to number 8. Oh, your microphone came unplugged in. Uh-oh. Anyways, yeah, it is kind of funny. Sami Niku has had a lot of trouble getting to the lineup, so it is ironic, or not, that his card would be of him not in uniform and in a suit. Uh-oh, Hustler's USB cord. I never did anything. That's not on me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just change your audio source so it's your headphones. But yeah, well, that is quite the pull, Huss.
So there you go. Any Sami Niku fans, eat your heart out. I've got a signed Sammy from the.
You're gonna get that thing graded? I said Dan. Dan said in the chat he's sending in some cards soon to get graded. So make sure you get that thing graded like number 10.
Oh, the Earl of Eli. Shout out to the Earl. He's one of our go-to guys for information on the card business. We'll do something on cards. The business is blowing up right now, so we'll certainly do that. And obviously, there's a lot of great local card shops to support. Or if you want to get into some of these breaks, it's a lot of fun too to put a little bit of cash in and see if you get lucky with the big hit.
And we did have some. Here, Sandy's popping in late. She says, I missed the start of the show. What's up with Lowry? Any news? They had no news on Lowry, correct? They did. The biggest news was Hellebuyck saying he didn't think he should have got pulled. I think that was the most entertaining thing, and they'll be ready for tomorrow, and we'll wait and see. I would think Harkins, to get to some real Jets, I think Harkins would just step in for Lowry. I think it kind of messed them up, not having Lowry. It really screwed up the lines.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I'll say, Andrew Kopp, and if you've heard my commentary on OB today, it's all about Kopp, and we talked about it with Dennis a little bit earlier. But, he scores last night his 15th of the year. Patrick Laine has 12, just to put that into perspective. Andrew Kopp now has 36 points in 46 games. And let's not forget, he's the Jets' go-to guy on the penalty kill. He's a big contributor on that second power play unit. He's usually in a shutdown role against the top competition, and he's having a career year. And I'll tell you what, dude, timing is everything, and Andrew Kopp's timing is perfect because he has proven just how important and versatile he is to the Winnipeg Jets, and you'd have to think he will be a major priority to get signed as soon as this season is done, regardless of how it ends.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, he came on 1290 after he signed that deal, and he went to arbitration, and he was not happy. He was, and full credit to Andrew Kopp. He's a guy who's always spoken his mind. Intelligent guy. He talked about going back to school. But yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out. He's probably, I don't know if he's like laughing all the way to the bank. I mean, but he's having an awesome season. He's going to get the contract he thinks he deserves. And so he's probably probably happy the way it worked out, maybe, or I don't know. And so good for him. He said they were asking him actually during the broadcast, what's going on? He's like, it's just a progression. I keep working hard, and good stuff has happened. I always thought I was a good player, and he's really getting a lot of opportunity this year too.
Yeah, Frishy 101, Kopp needs signing ASAP. That'll happen. Again, he is a restricted free agent, but this is it. He won't be after this, so we're looking for the extension. And Tristan Rivers' music, I thought the big news of the day was Maurice's legal advice. Yeah, exactly.
If you circle a guy's name on the board, you get sued.
Yeah.
There it is. Don't circle anybody's name on the board. Don't talk about it publicly. They'll figure it out going forward. Man, what a great week on the program. Gonna give a shout out to our friends out at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge too. If you are looking for a little bit of a getaway coming up over the next few months, usually they're packed with Americans. That's not happening right now in June. So what's normally the most popular month of the year to get up to Aikens, there is some availability. Find out more, aikenslake.com, or hit up Pit to Rent on Twitter at Aikens Lake. Well, Remo, a great week. I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night. And to be honest, I am just happy I ended up making it throughout the entire show without any sort of a disaster with my Vax high I got after getting the shot this morning.
Congrats. Are you going to show off your Band-Aid, or are you posting it on IG?
You know what I did? Like, does the shot count if I don't actually put it on Twitter or Instagram? Like, does it still work? Or is that one of the things you have to do that to make it effective? You need to actually put it on social media.
Yeah, you got to get those likes. But I think you're here on the podcast and YouTube telling people you got it. So if you are eligible, obviously don't walk, run to your computer to book an appointment. If you can figure out where near you has. Apparently that's tough. I haven't had a chance to look because I'm not eligible yet. But once I
went, you know what? I'll just say this for people. I mean, if you were in, when 40 Plus was able to do it, I just saw a link on Twitter. I checked the map. I'll give a shout out to the Stafford Pharmacy, which is on Stafford, right across from Sev and Slice's Pizza. I did not even know there was a pharmacy there, but it was on the map. I called. They gave me an appointment. I went in there today. It was easy. There wasn't a ton of people around there. Gave me the shot. Had to hang up for 15 minutes. I'm out of there. Feeling good. So anyways, hopefully that works out for everybody else. It's good for you. It's good for everyone. And it will help us get back to games soon, or sooner as opposed to later. All right. Thanks so much to Dennis Beyak. Thanks so much to Justin Bourne. Folks, if you're in right now, before you leave, do us a favor and hit that like button. Don't forget to tell your friends about Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily and get them to subscribe. Enjoy the game tomorrow. And as always, big thanks to our sponsors, Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, Nick and Nicky DQs, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Cool Bet, and Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. And of course, next week, Assiniboia Downs on board. We're 1 week away from the Kentucky Derby. We'll look forward to talking about that. Remo, great week. Thanks for everything, and have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for putting up with me. Yes, that was a fun one. It was a great week. We had some great guests, Ehlers, Jefferson. Someone mentioned they like Dave McCarthy the best with, they called it a cane. It's actually a staff. So we've had a lot of fun.
Great stuff. Hey, folks, have a great weekend. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you Monday afternoon right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. And check out the Lock Shop tonight. Have a great weekend.
Oh, my God. Oh! Shut it down. Let's go home.
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.